now some of these characters that I've gotten to write with are some of my favorites to work with. So like realizing, oh God, I might have missed this opportunity. Like that would have been terrible. And again, getting to draw on certain figures from mythology that have turned out to be very complex. Like, one of the characters I did write about is someone who turns out to be the Irish goddess of war, and I was trying to think like, what do I do with this character? How do I make her work? And I kind of eventually wrote it in that she actually left Ireland because of the Troubles, and because it was basically just the whole nation she was supposed to protect was now just killing each other. And I thought, that would be so amazing, a god of war who is sick of war. And if I had not been willing to go in that direction and write about that.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's the Author Podcast. We do great interviews here, not because of me, but because of my amazing guests. And they're all in here talking about their journey as an author and what they're writing and what great stories they have for you. And we get to learn as well from people who are actually doing the thing that we want to do as new authors listening to the show. So Eric's here with us today. I'm excited to have him here. We're going to go through his journey. He's waving, which is great. He's waving at you. We're going to talk about everything to do with Eric's journey and great stuff to talk about. Eric, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Eric, first, I'd like to start here with everybody. Where are you in this great big world of ours?
Oh, I'm currently out in Clark, New Jersey. It's a little town in central Jersey, which they, of course, say, if you live here, they say doesn't exist, but I can certainly tell you it does.
There you go.
I think it's because we don't get to take sides in the Taylor ham pork roll debate, which is another thing if you're from Jersey, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah, I've kind of lived in this area my whole life and just sort of moved around it a little bit and found my own place in it.
So if I'm a visitor first time in your community, something I must see, must do, food, what should I do?
Oh, there's a few. Let me think for a minute. Well, it's a fairly small town, but we do have there are a lot of different things around here. Food-wise, we have a few different good local restaurants. There's a local diner called the White Diamond that the town, I think, absolutely loves and has been here since, God, I think it might be since the 50s. It's even built out of an old diner car from a railroad, I think. And there's a couple of great Italian restaurants. Tarantella's we have is really good. As for things to do, there are a lot of different parks around here. If you're into that, there's some beautiful places to like go through and just to see nature in all its glory. And again, it's just like a really good small town to walk through and enjoy.
That's great. Let's talk about your author journey, Eric. What was it for you that got you interested in writing in the first place? What was your starting point?
Well, I think my starting point was that I was a reader. Ever since I was very young, first my parents read to me and told me stories. Then I started to read on my own. And I was always that kid who went to school with a book in his hand because I knew whenever I wasn't, going to be doing something, I wanted to keep reading. And it definitely evolved over time. I think like most kids of the era, the big thing I kind of read for a while was I read like the Goosebumps series, and it still amazes me how many books of that I probably went through. It had to be like 30 something. It's just amazing how many books that guy put out. But I always tell this story because I think it's probably the turning point as to where I started to look at writing like a little differently or reading a little differently. My mother actually did read one of these books, and I think it was about like 12 or 13 at the time. And she came back to me. I think she had like a rather large Stephen King book, and she said to me, "Eric, what you're reading is crap. Here's the Dead Zone. Have fun." And I remember like reading it, and that was like an upgrade because I really just opened my mind like, oh my God, there's a totally different way you can write, and you get so much more in depth with characters and ideas and all these other things. And I think I ended up reading out the entire Stephen King section of the library that year. And as this was going on, a lot of people were just telling me, well, you read so much, you should really write something. And I finally thought, you know what, I should just do that. So I sat down and I wrote my first short story. I don't fully remember what it was, but I'm sure it was terrible because it was the first time. But I kind of just kept building with it and trying to, draw on all these things I had read and observed to find something that I could work with.
Now, okay, I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit here.
All right.
If you were a podcaster and Stephen King was on your show as a guest, what
All right.
question would you have for Stephen King if he was a guest on your podcast? You're the host. He's your guest.
Oh,
What
oh
would you like
God.
to ask him? Come on.
Oh God. There are so many questions. Like I said, I've read his books. I think I've seen most, if not all, of the movies that were based on his work. I guess I would have to ask him, like, I'd probably have to make it a two-part. If I was asking him like something I've always wanted to ask, I think I'd ask him, how did you make Maximum Overdrive? And if for those who aren't aware, it's the only work of his that he ever adapted himself into a film. It's honestly one of the worst things you will ever see, but it's also the most fun you will ever have watching a film. So I just love to hear the experience of how he did that. But I guess as a writer, I would love to know like how he figured out his characters so well, because I feel like that's something I've always admired so much about him, that whenever he writes about somebody, he really gets into such depth, and you feel like this is a real person. Even characters that are just meant to be antagonists, like they have a certain degree of depth to them, where you're like, I want to see more about this person. I'm interested in where this person goes, even if I'm not rooting for them. I think that's what I would love to ask him. Just like one of those two questions, because if I had to narrow it down.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be a very interesting interview to have that gentleman and have time with him.
Oh God, yes.
I don't even know where I would start with him. Wow, my gosh. Yeah, so prolific.
I would really have to like plan out a good interview, I swear.
So what would have been helpful for you, Eric, early on in your journey as an author, if you were listening to a podcast and there was an author talking about their journey, what would have been helpful for you early days that maybe a listener today might benefit from?
I mean, there's a lot when you start out, I think, because it seems so big when you first start. You're kind of finding your way. You don't know how it works. I think I would tell someone, and I even tell people this now. The first thing you do will be terrible, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You are going to figure it out. You are going to try things that may work, may not work, and that you be open to the process. Figure out how your style works. We all have people I think we look to as inspirations, whether they're writing or in any other field, and you're never going to be exactly like that person. But if you can kind of keep working towards finding your own voice, using what they've taught you, I think that's the most important thing. So I would tell them, don't get discouraged about what you're working on. Don't feel bad that you don't sound exactly like Stephen King or whoever it might be that you admire. And just remember, it's about figuring out how you do it. And that's how it always has to be, because, and you don't want to copy somebody else. You want to use them and find your own voice.
Yeah, it's nice to be influenced by someone. I'm a musician.
Oh.
And I find when I'm playing music, I can hear other musicians, but I'm not trying to copy them. They had a big influence on me. And when I go to play, it just sort of comes out. It's not like I'm doing it intentionally, but
absolutely.
I can see the mix of all the different pieces. And that's what I love about like a new band or something. I'm like, oh, I hear a little this and a little that and a little bit of this, like spices, right?
Exactly.
Their own recipe.
I could even remember going on that as hearing something recently about this one band, and they were saying like, oh, they sound like a mix of Green Day and Cheap Trick and Oasis, and you hear, and if you're in the right mindset and you hear that, you're like, oh my God, that kind of band sounds awesome. I have to check that out. So it's like you said, if you use all the right spices to make a meal, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, and your uniqueness of who you are is what's gonna set you apart, right?
Exactly.
To the point where Stephen King would like to interview you, right? So there you go. That would be
that would be nice one day.
There you go. So okay, let's talk. I've been to Eric. Like, how many books do you have available for our readers that they can fall in love with?
I have a few actually. Sometimes even I'm surprised. Like I really wrote all those. Wow. My main series that I've been working on is called the Pantheon saga. It's currently 4 main books and a collection of short stories, plus a couple of digital only releases I put out. The premise is mainly about, kind of answering the question, what happens to like gods when nobody believes in them anymore and they have to get real jobs? At the other, and also, and there's like I said, there's about 5 of those right now. I'm currently working on another one, or I had the beginnings of one. As I said, I'm kind of working on I'm working on another story as well, so it's a little bit back and forth. But I'm hoping that it will be 5 total books soon,
Wow.
counting short story book.
Okay. Where's a good starting point then for a reader for you when they come to you for the first time?
Well, it's obvious. It sounds obvious, but the first book in the series, which is called Silent Pantheon, where it's really where I set up everybody. Went over each of these like 5 individual gods living in New York, what they do, who they are, and kind of how their world works. And yeah, I tried to make the other books accessible so that you weren't going into each one totally blind. You could kind of piece it. Oh, that's what happened here. That's who that person is. But it's honestly the best place to start.
Who are you modeling these characters after? Because I haven't met a lot of gods, so who are you kind of modeling these people after?
Well, I mean, the gods themselves, I kind of took from various mythologies. I've
Okay.
always been fascinated by it because, really, you're reading about how like people tried to explain the world before we had anything, before we had science, before we had any of that stuff, and it's kind of amazing to think how they tried to explain things. It's like thunder and lightning are a man in a giant chariot drawn by goats waving a hammer around in the sky. It's like there's kind of epic poetry to that. So I was always interested in it, and for the mythology part of the characters, I was drawing from Norse and Greek mythology, which I had grown up reading and I was pretty familiar with. There's also Egyptian mythology, some Hinduism, and I had to do a lot of research on that to really get it right because I tell people it's a beautiful religion, but if you're coming at it as an outsider, it can seem like a lot to take in. And even some Navajo Native American myths. And
Nice.
yeah, and in the later books, I was even able to explore some Irish and Celtic mythology. So I was really drawing on a lot of different sources to make these characters. As for them personally, I can't really say like I based them on individual people, but there were certain archetypes I was looking through. Like the main, I'd say like the quote unquote main character, Balder, who is god from Norse mythology. I always kind of tried to say like he's basically Captain America. I based him on the idea of somebody who, you know, was an inherently decent, good person who was always trying to do the right thing. And I think there was a line I read once about Cap where they said, people follow Captain America because they believe he could take them to hell and get them back out safely.
Mm.
So for him, that's really the mindset I wanted to have. Just someone that was just an inherently good person and that you would want to follow along with this story.
So, being gods in your stories,
Mm-hmm.
do your gods have any human limitations at all that they have to work through?
Very much so.
Okay.
The way I've written it is that, again, these are gods from many ancient mythologies, so they're not, really worshipped in the same way they used to be.
Mm.
So their powers are greatly diminished. They still exist because people know who they are and study their stories, but they're not, they're living in New York City and they're working regular jobs. So they're kind of limited by certain arrangements where they can still do things like, for example, like I have a goddess of wisdom who teaches kids at NYU, so she's still able to do that, but she can never, come out and take credit for it. So she has to they do everything in secret. They can never fully reveal to anyone who they are or where they came from. So it's very much a balancing act for them. They have to really appear as human as possible while also sneaking in little bits of, I guess you say, godly influence or magic even.
So, basically, your characters have been downsized
Very
from
much so.
what they
That's a
used to
very good way to
work
put it.
right down to something a little bit less. But also, I guess the other side for me as a reader, I'd be curious if I'd be bumping into these people in real life and the cashier at the corner store is serving me as I buy milk, and meanwhile they're like some amazing god that
That's an
I'm
interest
like,
I hadn't completely considered.
right? It's just the idea that they're so
I
powerful
think
and
they're
in
like,
this
my
moment,
God, the
right?
checkout cap. Exactly.
Right? Yeah, but
Oh,
they're so
that would be
powerful.
that might be another short story to work out or something. That would be
There
a
you
lot of
go.
fun.
There you go. All right, yeah. Because I think sometimes we're kind of blind to people in our day-to-day life. We just
Yeah.
do transactions, we stand behind people in lines, we're on the subway, we're just standing around people, we don't even talk to them. We're very we're very closed off, right, in our day to day. And what if these people that we are surrounded by were something bigger than they appeared? That'd be interesting.
That's a very good point. I mean, I think I was probably kind of writing about that without thinking of it, but you're absolutely right. It is kind of about how, you never know who anybody really is, or you never know who the person you're meeting used to be in a way.
You could be a god right now, and I don't even know.
That would
Right?
be nice.
Interesting. Okay, so
I have to like,
if
I
you
guess I have to
were,
figure out who I be first, but
yeah, what would be your superpower then if you were?
oh god, wow, I got to think about that for a second. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I've written,
Right?
all this reading I've done. There are so many gods who go look over
Yeah.
so many things. I'd really have to kind of sit down and be like, okay, do I, it's like a god of lightning. It's like, no, static thing would be terrible, or things like
Hmm.
that. And really kind of, I had to think about it. But yeah, I mean, it is the truth. You never really know who anyone is, even somebody you pass on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Which there's kind of an underlying lesson there too then to value the interactions we have, to not think small of people in life, right? Because you just never know, right?
No,
There's
absolutely.
I know there's somebody been talking more of a spiritual side, but they're saying like you never know if you're going to be entertaining angels. Like you just don't know, right? And there's those movies where
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
angels, they walk around among us, and you're like Nicolas Cage or whatever it was, right? There's
yeah. I
just
remember that one.
right. So you just never know, right? Who's right there with you? So I like
Absolutely.
this. It's fascinating.
Yeah, you're looking at it in a very different way. I'm glad I hadn't thought of it in that way before, but you're right.
Yeah, that's what I love about authors that write like what you do is because it makes you think, right? It's
I hope.
entertaining, right? Yeah, but it makes you kind of consider life and how you fit into this. So, in your series, then, are you developing the same characters throughout the series? Are we getting to meet new people, new characters during the series? How does that work?
A little bit of both. There is like
Okay,
a central group of characters. I sort of refer to them as the Pantheon of New York.
okay,
Pretty much based in the city, but in the second and third books, they do travel outside of New York, partly to meet first to discover new gods that are cropping up. And then in the third one, they actually, and it's actually one of my favorites to write, they go down to New Orleans because the voodoo gods are having problems and they need help. So they travel down to aid them. And that was actually one of my favorites, like I said, to write, because I actually went to New Orleans and had a really great trip down there. And then I just kind of took everything I had learned about the city and everything and said, I'm just going to write a book about this. And luckily that, I was thinking, well, the voodoo's right there. I have to
yeah.
look into that a little bit, but then I can probably make a really good story out of it. And God willing, I did.
I've talked to people from there. It's a very spiritual place. It's got a lot of stories and history there.
Yeah,
There's something different about that place.
it's really unique. I mean, I consider it one of the best trips I ever had. But just even the little things, like why they prepare their food the way they do, or
Yeah.
why they, or for me personally, finding out that the whole story about why they bury people the way they do, and there's all these stories, like they tell you like, oh, they don't bury people because if there was ever a flood, all these coffins would just come up and start like floating down Bourbon Street, which that would be a time. But apparently, I found out it's just the way they do things down there,
Yeah.
and that's how their crypts function. And I also there was one funny thing I got to put in. There's apparently one cemetery where they have a large like ivory pyramid, and they said, it's for this guy. He set it up ahead of time. He's waiting to be buried there, and it's like, well, who is it? Like, oh, it's Nicolas Cage. He's got a whole pyramid shaped crypt down there for when he dies.
Wow.
And I was like, well, that's going right in the book. Too good.
That's
It was funny. We
amazing.
went by, you could see like lipstick stains on it. Like people were actually kissing Nicolas Cage's grave. I'm like, he's not dead yet, people. He has other crazy things to do. I
There you
know.
go.
I love that story.
There you go. Well, and the other thing too is all the parades that they have and the deep meaning behind the parades that they do, and
Absolutely.
right, there's something special about that place.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of incorporated jazz funeral as a theme in the book. Just it's partly about like the dead not being quiet in their graves. So
Yeah.
getting to you, and that was really interesting because you get to study. I had to study, why they do it that way, how it actually moves from, the church to the graveyard. And it was really interesting to read. And you also are reading like, this is not a bad way to, send somebody off, this, you're set, the sadness becomes a big party. And I'm like, it's a good way to go. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that.
So, who would you say would be your ideal reader? Who would you love to come across your book? Like, give me an idea who that person is.
Well, like I said, I think, obviously a mythology fan would be great. I think they get a lot out of it. But I've always kind of described the book to people as sort of a bit of kind of like Neil Gaiman meets Marvel Comics, because he wrote a novel called American Gods, which is kind of like the spark for what I'm doing. And I tried to incorporate some of what he did, not all, but some. And yeah, I remember just thinking to myself when I was doing it, I want these characters to really feel vibrant and alive and make them easy for people to connect with. And, I felt like one of the best ways to do that was like, I've always been a comic book fan, and I thought like, things like Marvel were so good at making these characters that, felt real and three-dimensional, and you could remember them. And they also had that element of, kind of comic bookness where like anything could happen. There's no telling what the next thing will be. And I kind of like combine those two things for this book. So I would certainly say, like, if you're a fan of Gaiman or that kind of fantasy, this is definitely for you. If you enjoy, a good comic book style storyline with, people with powers dealing with just an increasingly unstable world, then I think this is for you as well.
Mm.
And the thing is, I think that can be anyone who might, from like someone who's 10 or 12, maybe someone who's older. I would probably draw the line at 10. I think like a 9-year-old might be like, oh, it's like, why are these gods having existential crises? Like, I don't know, Timmy, maybe this book's not for you.
Okay, so that's a pretty wide audience for your book then.
It is, and that's good, and it's a good and bad thing, because I've been to conventions and I've had fairly young kids look at my book and be like, wow, that's really cool, and they take it home and read it with them. And then I've had older people do it. So, it's on one hand, it's very good to cast a wide net like that and have many people interested. But it can make you think like, who is this book really for? And I don't know, maybe in a way I like to think it's for anyone. It's for anyone who likes that kind of story. It's for anyone who has an interest in it. Probably 10 and up, like I said. And that's probably a cutoff. But hopefully it's for anyone who, like I said, likes those kind of stories and wants to get something that has all that that good excitement and character work, and maybe is a little bit deeper than they think at first glance.
Talk about how you build out the world around your characters, right? It's one thing to have a character, but you got to put them somewhere. So, being New York, I've been there many times. That's a very visual place. It's got its own its own character, just the city, right?
Absolutely.
So, why did you place them in New York, and what elements of New York are you leaning on for your story?
Well, I mean, part of it was that, I grew up in New Jersey, so New York is, the closest, mecca, you would say, to what we have. And I, too, have been there many times, and it is a very unique city, and it has its own feel. And I just remember thinking, thinking to myself when I was doing it, like, this is like one of the, most diverse, packed cities in the world. If I was a guy that kind of had to hide away a little bit, I would think like, I don't think you could pick a better city for that than New York, because there's just so many different people, there's so many different things, and I kind of felt like this is a place where they could vanish, but they could probably find a little bit enough of where they originally came from. As for drawing the city out, it was really just my experiences being there, what I had seen of it. I certainly would not describe in the way that a native could. I'm sure that's a language I would never be able to replicate. But I really just tried to draw on, my times going there and what I had seen, and hopefully painting like a reasonably good picture of what it's like in New York.
Are your characters, Eric, okay with being kind of like reduced down to a lesser version of who they are? Have they resigned themselves to it? Were they kicking and screaming? Did they put up a fight?
No, that's a very good question. It's a bit in the first book. It's definitely sort of a mixed feeling. I think some of them feel like, logically they know they made the right decision, because there was just they couldn't fight it anymore, and to continue doing it would have been much worse. But they missed when, they were on the mountaintop and so many people used to come to them. They were able to hear so many people who needed help and try to aid them. Others are more regretful. I think one of the characters, when I was coming up with them, I was always thinking, these characters have to have a conflict. They have to have something inside them that is driving them or, pushing them in some way. And I remember one of the characters is a god of death. And I remember thinking with him, as I was developing the character, it was like, he's the last one of his kind. He only survived because they told him to stay behind before their last battle. He has survivor's guilt. He's probably got some PTSD somewhere. And I thought, and really the job is the only thing that has kept him going throughout the centuries. And I just thought, that's such a central irony. It's a god of death who is tired of being alive in some ways.
Do your characters battling with identity at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like as I said, they have some purpose because of what they do, even as humans. But they just have that regret of like, I used to be able to do so much more, and I used to be so much more, and it got taken away from me because people went in a different direction and they started worshiping a different god, and it's all these mixed feelings of like regret and jealousy, and I kind of always think of it as like the factory workers who get laid off and they meet up in a bar and they're like, oh, things were much better when I did things, and things were we used to have a better system. And as the story goes on, they kind of start to realize, like, maybe we didn't have all the answers, or maybe there were things we didn't see because we were so high up. And now we're down here and we're really seeing things that we never thought about or never noticed. And maybe we never really dealt with.
See, that's really relatable to many, many people. Many of us have been,
I think so too,
shown the door at jobs or missed, like somebody else has got promoted over us. And you're like, come on, like I should have got that role, or I should have been promoted, right? And you feel like you're invisible almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I always had that metaphor in my head of like, the factory worker who gets replaced by the shiny robot. And they're sitting in this bar and thinking like, oh, in my day, we used to do everything by hand and it was great. And then they have to go through this process and realize, oh, wait, maybe I didn't have all the answers, or maybe there were things I didn't realize that I was doing or that I could have done better and just ignored. So
do you have moments like that for yourself where you felt that way?
I think so. I mean, I think it would be impossible not to. Like, I kind of look back, with writing alone, just like things where I've looked back and gone like, oh, I should have done that differently, or oh, I should have like thought of it otherwise. Like, for example, prior to this, I was working another series, and I had signed up with this independent publisher, and I was very new to the whole thing. I didn't know, I didn't know very much about it. I was trying to do my research, and unfortunately, that book never really went anywhere. And some of it was because of the publisher, some of it because I didn't really know how to market myself. And, looking back, I kind of think, like I should have tried that differently, or I should have talked to more people and maybe gotten a better sense of what these guys were like. And, and maybe even looked into ways of doing it for myself and things, maybe that series would have gone differently. But, that is what it is. And for now, all I can do is try to take that and move forward with this here.
Yeah, there's that putting your faith in someone else and hoping you made a right choice, right? That's
exactly.
Tough when right? That's really, really tough. Do you have access to that series that you can still use that in the future? Right?
Yeah, it's still on Amazon. I think it's linked to my author page there, and people can see it. I did finish a third book in it, but I think after my experience, I didn't have the passion for it anymore, and this new story was really taking more of my time. And someday I think I might put it out there just to finish things off. But I'm at the same time, I'm glad I did it, because I do look back on how I did that book and I think to myself, like, oh God, I had too many characters. I made things too complicated. Like, what the hell am I talking about here? And I kind of like, put those lessons into the Pantheon. I said, okay, I got to have like a small group. I can't have like 10 characters in one group. It's got to be small. Got to have time to focus on each of them. Just really make it kind of more streamlined in a way. I think that's the best way to describe it. And so again, I look back and think like I could have done so many things better with that book, but at the same time, I also try to think, well, I learned something from it, and then hopefully I can move forward and do better the next time.
Any feedback from readers that kind of made you go, that's interesting. Like to hear that kind of feedback from them and maybe what they got out of the story.
I definitely did I got some feedback. Most people did like it. I think they did echo some of the things I mentioned that, it was a few too many characters. I do remember there was one thing that they had said that did make me kind of impact things. I was, giving the book around to people I knew and trying to get, some personal feedback. And one guy kind of said to me, "Well, Eric, you didn't write any women in this story." Like, what do you mean? Well, I have a female character there, and they're like, "Yeah, but none of the main characters." I'm like, oh God, why did I do that? And I started to think like, what, why didn't I do that? And I think at the time maybe I thought like I didn't. I was like, I don't know. What if I do it wrong? What if I write a woman incorrectly and someone comes after me? But I kind of just realized after time, like they're just characters, like you don't necessarily read because someone's a man or a woman or whatever it might be.
Right.
You read because like I'm really interested in this person and what they're trying to do and where they're going. So I think from that I kind of just took it, and that's why in the newer books there's a better mix, and I kind of just try to write everybody as a person and a character first, and any of the other stuff comes secondary.
I had an author on the show a while back, and they wrote a book. He's a male author.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a book from a female's point of view in the story. Wow. And the feedback he got in the initial beta readers when he sent out his book was, no.
Oh,
he's like, what? What do you mean? He's like, and the women that read the book said, if you're going to write from a female perspective, you need way more details. It was around like a wedding scene.
Oh,
and the women reading were like, you didn't tell me the dress style, the flowers, what was the venue like, what was the food like. And he's like, I need all that. They're like, that's the beginning. That's the bare minimum. You need to get a little bit more detail. You're writing from a guy's perspective.
Oh,
you need to write from a woman's perspective. And I'm like, wow.
I cannot imagine what he must have done when he went back. Like, okay, how do I fix this? Like, I got to watch every wedding ever.
Right. But that's interesting because, right, we don't know what we don't know.
Of course.
We're doing our best with what we have, but that feedback's really important, I think, for authors.
Absolutely. I mean, now some of these characters that I've gotten to write with are some of my favorites to work with. So like realizing, oh God, I might have missed this opportunity. Like that would have been terrible. And again, getting to draw on certain figures from mythology that have turned out to be very complex. Like, one of the characters I did write about is someone who turns out to be the Irish goddess of war. And I was trying to think like, what do I do with this character? How do I make her work? And I kind of eventually wrote it in that she actually left Ireland because of the Troubles, and because it was basically just the whole nation she was supposed to protect was now just killing each other. And I thought, that would be so amazing, a god of war who is sick of war. And if I had not been willing to go in that direction and write about that, I'd like, thank God I just decided to write for a character and not worry about gender or anything like that.
So out of your vast array of characters, name for me a character that you feel you could really connect with in real life. Like if the two of you together, it would be like the best of times. And someone that you could not stand for 10 seconds to be in the same room with. Give me those two characters. Who are they? Right. Your favorite and the one you can't stand.
Okay, well, I think I'll start with the one that I can't stand because I knew who that was pretty quickly.
Okay.
One of the characters that I read in the story is an archangel. The idea is that sort of like all of these gods are basically displaced because one by one they all got taken over by some form of like Christianity or the Abrahamic faiths, and that's kind of why they're diminished. And there's certain angels that are more understanding to them and are like, we know you're not really doing anything bad here. We're willing to let you go. And I wrote this one archangel who is just like the most pompous, old school. It's like, this is how it was written 2,000 years ago, and it must be this way now. And I'm judging you all by the standards we did 2,000 years ago, and that's why I'm bringing down that's why the 10 plagues of Egypt are raining down on New York City right now. And and I just remember trying to really kind of make him to somebody who didn't see the forest for the trees anymore. And I'm like, I would hate that guy because, again, like the world is not black and white. The world is very gray. So to me, someone who doesn't see that is just becomes so tiresome after a while.
Okay. All right.
As for a character that would be fun that I would love to hang out with, it would be cool to speak to a lot of these characters. I think like if I had to pick the most fun one, I did one of the gods is a trickster character. His name is Coyote. He's from the Navajo stories, and I just have so much fun when I get to write his character because number one, I made him a lawyer because he's like that fits. Just for some reason, that's what a trickster should be doing. Yeah. And I also kind of wrote it in that he's the sort of guy who is very sarcastic, very, kind of sharp tongue, but in a fun way. And, he's the sort of guy who would follow this, the spirit of a deal, but not the letter. For example, in his introduction, he actually figures out a way to get his opposing lawyer sent to jail. And the guy's like, "We made a deal. You said you wouldn't win you said you would lose the case." And he said, "Yeah, but I didn't say you would win it either." So I think it would be a lot of fun to like hang out and talk with and just see what he would think on different things. I would love to have a conversation with him.
All right. What's one question you would ask him?
Like probably right now, like how much of this was you? How much of the world right now did you do?
Okay.
Yeah, but I think honestly, just I would probably just like to ask him like what can how do we take what can oh God, I really have to think. I've never had to think about actually talk to these people. I don't know. Yeah. Probably just like that would be probably my starter would be like how much of this did you do? And then maybe like what do you think of some of these things? Because like some parts of the world now are so ridiculous. You'd just love to say, so your job is to make things insane. What do you think of that? Yeah. And just get a sense of like, it's like, no, my hands are clean on that. You did that all by yourself.
That's not me.
Exactly.
Or my bad. One of the two.
It's like, yes, I went too far with that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a little excessive. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Bingo.
There you go. Okay, so for readers, Eric, like what can we anticipate from you in the future? Like what are you working on? What's coming up down the path? Always curious to hear what people are working on next.
No, thank you. Well, I am still working on the next book in the series, but I have had a few different ideas over the years as I was working on Pantheon, and I have kind of decided to just, pause it briefly and work on one idea that I've had for a while. I was a Stephen King fan, and that kind of has led me to horror fiction. And I always wanted to write a good horror story. And I had this really interesting idea recently about sort of generational horror fans, that there's a convention somewhere and you meet these, group of three people who are fans of horror from the 1980s. You have three kids who are fans of horror now, and they do not get along. They have completely different ideas on what it should be. And the arguing gets so intense, it actually summons the spirit of horror itself. And it decides to test them by summoning three monsters from each era and having them fight the opposing genre. So these people now have to learn to help and coach each other through them out. Like, stop trying to analyze Freddy Krueger, just hit him with a knife. Or it's like you can't hit the Babadook with a sledgehammer. You have to think it out, or something like that. And it's fun because I have seen so many, because I've got a lot of conventions. I've seen so many different people dress up as so many different monsters and different characters, and you really just like it's so many things in this field, in this genre. Like how do we all talk together? How do we do that? And I think I thought like it would be really fun to explore that. And also because I do, work in my day job with some younger people, and every so often you just, there's you just hear them say something where you're just looking at them kind of funny. Like I have one guy, he did not know who Jack Nicholson was.
Oh no.
It was worse. Then he had never, I think, he had also, I remember when Ozzy Osbourne passed away, he asked me like, "Oh, do you know any like Ozzy songs?" And I go, "Well, God, do you mean like solo stuff, Black Sabbath?" And he said to me, "Was Black Sabbath a Christian band?"
Oh no.
Oh God, yeah. So you just realize that every so often there's a disconnect between generations, and but I also think ideally, if you look at what everybody does, whether you're from the past looking forward or the present looking backwards, you find a lot of stuff that you can relate to. And I think the guy I mentioned, he has gone back and seen things like The Godfather or something. Like, there's hope for you yet. There's hope.
That'd be interesting for your combative horror characters. Again, I like the idea of it being set kind of like in a Comic-Con.
Oh yeah,
where there are characters who are impersonating the real ones that show up. Is like, here's me in my costume of, wait, that's the real one, and I'm just no, I'm just a fake one. I'm not real. Back away.
Exactly.
Like kind of, that'd be interesting.
That would be fun. It's like, damn it, why did you do the makeup so well?
Yeah. Just have them look at each other. It's kind of like the Spider-Man thing where the real Spider-Man meets the fake Spider-Man, and they're looking at each other like, it's close. Not close enough.
That would be a fun thing to write. I agree. That could be really good.
Yeah, there you go. Well, see, I feel like we're co-writers now.
I'll give you a shout out when I get it published.
You're the expert. Maybe a podcaster in your story somewhere would be good too. I don't know. Let's throw that in there.
I'll see what I can do for you.
All right. I'm making requests now, which is great, Eric. I love it. That's great. Eric, tell everybody where to connect with you, follow your journey, get the books, all that good stuff. You know how we do this at the end of the show.
Of course.
I want to send everybody to you to come buy your books, support you, leave reviews as well. Where would you like to send the listener, Eric?
Well, if you're interested in purchasing my books, I primarily sell on Amazon. I have my own author page there. So just look up my name. You should get listed to all the Pantheon books. And I think even the older ones I mentioned. So you can see every era of what I've done. As for me personally, I do have a Facebook page for my stuff. Unfortunately, Twitter got a little too weird for me, so I backed out of there. But if you want to reach me on Facebook, that's the best way to send me a message, and hopefully we can have a good conversation.
Excellent. I'll put all those links in the show notes. So beyond continuing to write, it can be unrelated to writing and whatever you like, but my podcast is Living the Next Chapter.
Sure.
So Eric, how are you living your next chapter?
Well, currently as I said, I'm just trying to do a lot of work with the books and get things going. I'm also trying to expand, musically a little bit. I'm a musician myself. I started out playing bass, then I taught myself guitar from that, and I'm currently trying to teach myself mandolin.
Wow.
It's going reasonably well so far. A lot of the techniques do kind of fit into each other. But I just have to remind myself, like, I can't make a guitar chord on the mandolin. The neck is just not big enough for that.
There you go. Good. Well, good work on that. Keep going on that. That's great.
Also finding what songs work. Like Tom Petty works surprisingly well on a mandolin. I don't know why. It just does.
Yeah, that would work. That would work for sure. No, I like that.
Yeah,
excellent.
So I'm glad to hear. Yeah, it's a fun process. I'm not sure why I just wanted to do it. I just decided, teach myself mandolin now. I have no idea why.
There you go. Well, it might show up in a story someday. You never know.
Anything's possible.
That's good. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show, everyone.
No, thank you for having me.
When you buy Eric's book, as you listen to this, please leave a great review. I know Eric would love to hear your thoughts around the story, the characters, what you loved about the book. Please leave a great review when you buy Eric's books, and tell somebody as well. You're like, oh, I know somebody's going to love Eric as an author. Then please share this episode, share links with Eric's stuff to them, and invite them also to buy the books as well. Eric, thank you so much for being on Living the Next Chapter. Come back, because I love having you in the future as well.
Definitely. I had a great time.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee. Okay, I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.